Hello, horse lovers. I've had a request to talk some more about my Breyer models, and I thought I'd take this chance to do a video about some of my Breyer rescues. Now, you might say, how can you rescue a Breyer? They're just a model, right? We people who collect Breyers don't see them that way. And yes, you can absolutely end up rescuing them. My first rescue was Tutoy. And you'll understand why he got his name in a moment. I've talked about him in other videos, but in case you haven't seen those, you can see now absolutely gorgeous shading on his colors, beautiful face markings that suit his face really well, resculpted mane and tail. But what I was also going to point out on his shoes, on his feet here, you could see the shoes painted on. There's even nails where you could see where the horseshoes would have been secured on a real horse, striping on the hooves. Wonderful detailed work on him, but he didn't always look like that. I first got into rescuing Breyers when I saw an ad on Facebook for some badly broken Breyer models, and if anybody wanted them, they could be bought for the cost of shipping, otherwise, they were going to be thrown away. Q-Toy was one of those models. I have a couple others from that same lot, but they haven't been sent to be fixed yet. I ended up rescuing a lot of models, and they're each getting their turn, but this is what Chew Toy looked like in the ad that I saw for him. You can see how he got the name Chew Toy. You can see the bite marks in his legs, his ears were chewed off. He was actually missing one of his legs. So, yeah, when I bought him, I thought, okay, how am I going to get him fixed? But I was a member of several Facebook groups, and I figured, well, let's put a post in those and see if anybody's willing to customize him. And some customers that I actually, some customizers that I messaged, they were like, no, I'm not touching that. But I happened to find Nightwind Customizing Studios, and they did an absolutely amazing job. The lady who fixed him is based in Michigan, and she finished him just before there was a live model horse show. Now, if you're into showing your model horses, you know that there's photo shows and there's live shows where you actually bring the model. Now, live shows obviously are a lot harder because in a photo, if a horse happens to have a scratch or a mark on one side, you can photograph them where that's not going to show. Well, since the live show was coming up, and I didn't know if I'd ever have a chance to take any of my models to a live show, I asked the lady who customized him, would you show him for me? And she agreed, and he actually took sixth place. Which, you might say, okay, sixth place, but for a model that was going to be thrown away, to me, that's a pretty big deal, and I was really happy about that. Well, as I said, Chew Toy was the first, but I've rescued a lot of models since then. In fact, I think it's fair to say probably a third of my. No, not that many, because I have a lot more models than that, but there's a good percentage of my model horses that are rescues. Now, Chew Toy was in bad shape, but that's nothing compared to what Kong looked like when I got him. Now, Kong is the Azteca Stallion mode. I forgot to say, Chew Toy started out as a Big Ben mold. But with the resculpting of the mane and that, people thought he looks more like a Spanish breed, like an Andalusian. Well, not quite all the way Andalusian. So we decided, um, some friends of mine that arranged shows and I decided he looks like an Azteca, which is a cross between an Andalusian and a quarter horse. Now, this guy actually is an Azteca. Beautiful dapple gray coloring. He started out as a gray originally too, and I wanted to kind of keep the gray look. But this is a major improvement on his original paint job. Love the two-toned mane. Now this was done by a different artist. Another one that I found on Facebook. This one was one of the few that was actually willing to take on sculpting him an entire new head. Kong got his name after the brand of chew toys that, if you have dogs, you might be familiar with. And this is what Kong looked like when I bought him. He was another one scheduled to be thrown away. Kong was fixed by a Facebook friend of mine named Deanna. I actually saw some of her other work on a Breyer Facebook auction page, and I was highly, highly impressed, especially with the work she does on the little miniature paddock pelt and little bit sprayers that are just they're so tiny. Some of them, like the micro size, and she's able to get incredible detail into them. So I sent her some pictures, and she's like, "I don't promise he'll be beautiful." And I'm like, "Well, can you at least make him look like a horse?" She's like, "That I can do." But I think he actually did turn out very beautiful. I mean, he remade his whole head. That takes a lot of skill. Now, there is another artist I like that I'm going to talk about shortly. And now, the artist that I'm going to talk about shortly, I've used him for other works and I consider him a good friend as well. But he was honest with me and he's like, "Yeah, I can't touch that. Sorry." So I respect an artist who knows the limitations as well as artists who do really great work like that. Now, I found Kong when his previous owner posted on Facebook saying, "Look what my two German Shepherds did to my model." And he was going to toss him, and I'm like, "Wait, wait, don't toss him, I'll take him." Yeah, that's getting to be a habit with me. But, there are worse habits, right? So, the lady who sold me Kong also had another model for sale. And this is what he looks like now. This is Twix. Now, you never know it from his positioning now, or maybe you could still tell. Absolutely gorgeous dapple shading on him. I sent him to the same artist that fixed Kong. Now, originally, you notice, I want to point out his leg here. You can see the bend of it. Now, the reason he was sold to me for pretty much the cost of shipping was because somebody before his previous owner had tried to customize him by taking a hair dryer to his leg and bending it very badly. This is what that leg would look like on that model normally. This is Tuxedo. I'm just going to use him to demonstrate the usual position. You see how it's straight out? Very classic Hanoverian dressage position. Now that's what Twix originally looked like in a brown color, and I'm going to show you pictures of what he looked like when I first got him as well, so you could see the difference in how that leg looked before it was repaired. You could see that leg looks like it looks like the way a horse would hold their leg if they were injured. And the reason for that is by trying to use a hairdryer to bend it to give it a different position, they didn't take into account how the muscles in that shoulder would look. So when Deanna fixed him for me, she did some resculpting of the muscles as well as a whole new paint job because there was some nicks in the paint. And I think he really turned out great. Now, you could probably tell I use different artists. Well, that depends on, who's available, who will be able to do it sooner, as well as what they think they'll be able to handle. The lady that fixed Chew Toy for me from Nightwind Studios, brilliant work, but she's way booked up. And I respect that. I understand, she's got a lot of models to do. So she is actually working on a work in progress for me right now. But I do use different artists at different times. And I wanted to talk about another artist that I got to become good friends with from Canada. His name is Ezra, and I actually met him when he was selling one of his customized works on Facebook, and somebody spoke up to claim that model before I could say, hey, I'll buy him. But apparently, I made an impression when we had a nice conversation about different models and customizing. And a few weeks later, this one isn't a rescue. He was already stunning when I bought him. But this is Afterglow. Nice work on the tail. I like the two-toned color in the tail. But Afterglow here was a model that he was selling, and he contacted me straight off, and he said, "Would you like to buy this one?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And after that, I sent another rescue to him. This one is one of some I just sent for paint. I'm not talking about just the paint redoing today. I'm talking about real rescues. This one is Take a Chance, and I got her from somebody who was selling her as a zombie horse after all the damage that she'd had. Major melting on the paint job. And I'm going to show you what she looked like when I bought her. My friend Ezra was actually the one who didn't want to mess with making Kong a new head, but he did a very nice job on fixing Take a Chance, or as I call her, Chansey. You could see that wasn't just a bad paint job. That was the paint and plastic beneath actually starting to melt. And he was able to restore that. Each artist has their own individual style. And one thing about Ezra, he's really good with doing unusual colors. Should probably comment on the breed. We both, Ezra and I both think of Take a Chance as a horse that's called an appendix. Now you might think that sounds weird. An appendix is a thoroughbred quarter horse cross. And the way they got that name was there would be a little appendix symbol, little star behind their name to indicate that they were a cross between different breeds, between these two types of horses. Actually, they're very versatile horses if you ever want to look at an appendix horse. Great for just about any kind of sport. They got speed, they got strength, very good sport horses, so just some commentary on that. Now, so far, I've talked about some of my models that have had very bad customization jobs that were attacked by dogs that had melted. But now, these are a few of my models who had really nothing wrong with them appearance wise when I got them, and they still don't. The ones I'm going to show you now were going to be thrown away because they were shrinkies. Now, a shrinky is is a Breyer model that had a defect in the plastic, and these models start to shrink over time. And some people actually collect shrinkies. I kind of ended up doing that unintentionally. But a lot of people, once their horses start to shrink, they throw them out, and I'll explain why in a moment. But anyway, this is Permission to Dance. You can see nice little Pasofino horse. His color could use some cleaning up. I'm not really that good with that, but I don't want to send him in for a whole new paint job. Sometimes you love a model so much as they are, you accept the little imperfections, and every model, no matter what, is unfortunately going to get ear rubs, little scuffs in the paint, some kind of imperfection sooner or later. And as a collector, you gotta decide, am I going to keep them as they are, or am I going to have someone fix that, or am I going to sell them on down the road? And for me, in my case, I'm willing to live with a little bit of imperfection. To me, as long as, I'd rather lose that than lose, as weird as it sounds, the personality of who they are. And I think any artist can understand that. The personality of a painting or a statue, the personality's there. So rather than lose that, I'll put up with some nicks and stuff. So in his case, I'll put up with some discoloring in the plastic. Now, another shrinky that I got from the same group is this is Dun Gone Frosted, or Dunny as I call him, because he doesn't really seem like a Frosty to me. But this is Dunny. He had some trouble with his front legs. They're still not bent perfectly. But remember I talked about Twix with the hairdryer, how his leg was bent? If you don't go that far with it, And if you are very, very careful to not snap the leg, you can actually take a hair dryer on on a model with a bent leg and slowly pull it back into place. Heat it for for like maybe. I don't want to give it time because it depends on the hair dryer and how hot it is. But just heat it for a short interval. Try to pull for just a little bit, not enough to break the leg, of course, but just pull a little and then kind of hold it while the plastic rehardens. Doesn't take that long. And then you can actually straighten them. He couldn't stand when I got him, and he actually can stand now. Not the greatest, he is a bit tippy, but no reason in the world to throw him out, I don't think. He's like I said, I got these three were from the same group for the cost of shipping. The third one in that group, I call him Seize the Day because I like the song from Newsies. I am a musical enthusiast, so this is Seize the Day. Love the pinto coloring. This is a saddlebred, and I actually learned to ride on saddlebred, so they have a special connection to me. Love the pinto coloring. Now, he's in a slightly different position. I'll let you see him head on from the next one I'm going to show you. The next one I'm going to show you has his own story. Remember, I said a lot of Breyer collectors will not work with a shrinky, and that is because sooner or later, a shrinky is probably, not always, but very probably going to become an Uzi. Oozy is just what the name sounds like. The plastic starts to ooze. And once you got that, most collectors think game over. Trying to throw this away. Well, not to harp on my own experience too much, but just to relate the personal connection here. I happen to have been in a very severe bike accident almost exactly a year ago now, as we approach June. I broke my leg very badly, and I was in the hospital for almost 2 months, off work for 4 months. And while I was in the hospital, I was scrolling through my phone, and I happened to come across somebody saying that they were going to throw this guy out. Now, the reason I held up wanted to show you the other one face out is you can see this one's a little bit more turned to the front, got a little bit more different slant of the head. Not very noticeable, but you can kind of see it. This one is another shrinky. Unfortunately, the saddlebred mold is known for that, and he had progressed to being an Uzi. And his owner was another one in the Facebook group. Said, "Hey, this guy's got to be tossed. I'm so disappointed. Look at how he became an Uzi." And I said, don't toss him. I'll take him. Because being in a hospital myself, I don't know if that really had kind of a I mean, like I said, I collect Rescue Breyers anyway. I'm just that kind of person. A lot of people, I guess, do that. I'm not the only one, so I'm not crazy, I swear. But, so I got this guy. I asked for him to be mailed to me once I was back home out of the hospital. Love the dapple gray coat. He's, um, you can see he doesn't look like he's oozing now, and that's why there is hope for Uzis. Sometimes. You can wipe them off, put them in the freezer for a while, and like I said, I've had this guy almost a year now, and I am not seeing any signs of the plastic deteriorating any further than what it originally did. In fact, to look at him now, you'd never know there was a problem. Having an Uzi, Breyer collectors call it the equivalent of having a terminally ill horse because they're not going to last very long, but he's not ready for the garbage can yet. Not by a long shot. He has an unusual name. I call him Oxy because, like I said, I was in the hospital on some pretty severe pain relievers, and buying him was kind of pain reliever for me in a way, so I gave him the name Oxy, short for oxycodone. And yes, I do photo show him under the name of Hearing Colors because I joked that I was so out of it from the pain relievers I was hearing colors. Not a good thing, but it became a little dark humor that helped me get through that point in my life. So, those are some of my rescues. I have others that are still being fixed. But, yeah, you can see it is possible to get into the hobby of rescuing Breyers, and it can turn out to have some really wonderful experiences. And maybe by watching this, you'll think of, taking in somebody from the Breyer Body Pit. There's actually a Facebook group called the Breyer Body Pit where people sell their models that have really bad paint jobs, victims of dog attacks, or bad customizing. And they say, hey, if you can do something with them, take them. You can end up with some really nice models out of that. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at some of my Breyer collection. And until next time, keep horses in your life.